Thank you very much. I've just realised you can't see me properly yet. Can you hang on? Yes, here I am. Hello. Well, obviously you can tell straight away that I'm the sort of person that likes to keep very fit indeed. And that's because I take a lot of exercise. That's because I said to myself, this year I'm going to sit up in bed and have a fag instead of lying down. And it's worked a fucking treat, hasn't it? Yes, I think so. The other thing I like to do is I like to eat a reasonable diet, so I go to Scotland, because I don't know if you know this, but Scotland's got the highest rate of heart disease in the entire world. So what does that mean? It means a bit of decent fucking grub for a change, doesn't it? I love it up there, oh yes I do. But I have actually noticed there is one recipe missing from the Scots diet, which is a personal favourite of mine. I urge them to try it, it's brilliant. It's chocolate and pork pie cake, deep fried in batter, and served with custard cream and a horse on top. So try that, Scotland, and you'll die probably, won't you? Now, I want to know what sort of audience we've got in tonight. Have we got any heavy metal fans? Yes. Oh, well done. I thought you wouldn't understand the question.
That's why I didn't answer. I'm sorry. That's why I didn't answer.
Well, I don't know if the rest of you know this, but the heavy metal band Judas Priest had a very hard time in America last year. They were taken to court by a couple of families because of subliminal messages in one of their songs, which apparently encouraged two teenagers to commit suicide. Now, I actually followed that case. I think they made it a bit over-complex, really, because in my day, you know, you listen to Judas Priest, you killed yourself. It was as simple as that. Because they are shit, aren't they? But, you know, people keep saying romance is dead in pop music. I'm not sure it is, because I had a charming little ditty recently by a band called Colour Me Bad, called I Wanna Sex You Up. I mean, face it, you know, if someone whispered that in your ear in the disco, you'd call a policeman, wouldn't you? Or at the very least, a fucking English teacher, I would have thought, but, there you go. You know, stuff we watch telly, stuff going on the telly, on the news, we read the newspapers, don't we? And I think we know that 99% of the time we're not getting the truth. But you see, I think the big problem is that that sort of attitude is filtered down to the rest of us in our normal social life, and nobody bothers to tell the truth anymore. You know what it's like when someone phones you up you haven't seen for ages and they say, how are you? You always say, oh, I'm fine. Well, what you'd really like to say is, well, I had an abortion 2 months ago, just had laser treatment for cervical cancer, got pissed out my head on cheap cooking sherry last night because I'm so lonely, and I haven't had a decent fuck for ages. Dad. No, because it's about time Dad knew, isn't it? I think so. It's certainly time my dad knew, you know, because my dad's got no idea what I do at all. He knows it's called alternative comedy, but that's about it. And he said to me recently, well, what do you wear when you go on stage? And I said, well, I wear the same old crap I normally wear, you know. And he said, but don't you wear a hat? What the fuck does that mean? I have no idea. But it's very nice actually to be up here and to be out of London. London's pretty violent, you know, that's why I live there, because I have to say I'm not averse to a good punch-up myself. Oh no, especially at the January sales. Now, I don't actually buy anything, I just go around hitting people because I think it serves them fucking well right, really, but you know, violence is becoming an increasing problem for women all over this country, really. London, as I say, is particularly bad. I've lived in London 12 years now. I reckon, you know, that having travelled on public transport in London over those years, I can now say that I have become somewhat of an expert on modern weaponry. Mainly because I've seen such a motley collection of penises on the buses and tubes. Well, is it a penis or is it a swan vesty? You just can't tell sometimes, can you? All the women laughing at that one, jolly good. All the men looking uncomfortable, hurrah. Oh, and someone clapping over there, brilliant. A flasher in, good lord. No, because we women, you know, we're getting very fed up with having to take our electron microscopes on the bus with us, just to see what's popping out of those Macs all the time. That's that's one thing I like about women, you know, is that when you get women together in a big group, even if they get completely pissed, at the end of the evening, they don't tend to kick each other's heads in, do they? No. I think that's good, you know, but I have to say, like, I changed my mind radically every time I watch the old Tory party conference, because there they all are again, all these are bats from Surrey, baying for the death penalty, aren't they? And, you know, it makes me think, you can divide women that vote Tory into two groups, really. You've got the sort of 65-year-old battle axe who's married to a retired pit bull terrier. And then you've got the ones I really hate. They're the young women that vote Tory because they model themselves on Princess Diana, same two CSEs, anorexia and crass stupidity, if you want to know what they are. Oh, not too sure about that, are we? We've got a few royalists in tonight. No, I think we've got a little group of sociologists in going, no, you can't do that. You can't split them into two broad groups like that. It's not on. So I always say, all right, there is actually something that all women that vote Tory do have in common, and that's that they all deserve a good kick in the fanny from me. Oh, don't clap, please, because obviously I'm not here to talk about my hobbies tonight. But actually, there is another category of Tory women. Unfortunately, only one woman in this one. This is Devil's daughter, fucking old goat bastard. Edwina Currie, I think you know who I'm talking about. Now, I love to follow Edwina Currie in the news, I do, because what she does all the time is she says she's constantly being misquoted. You know, she actually took the Observer newspaper to court recently because they implied in an article that she would kill to save her political career. And she won $5,000, which is great, isn't it? Because now she can afford another Ford Transit, a few mortar bombs, and have another pop at number 10. So I'm very pleased about that. And everywhere you look, there's old Edwina being misquoted again. You know, she was quoted in Punch, wrongly she says, as saying that she had her first sexual experience under the influence of alcohol. No, I don't think so. Her partner, yes, I could well believe that. Now, on this violence theme, you know, I just want to say that I really don't think we women need any help from Judge Pickles, do we? Thank you very much. The man that's done for feminism what the lead singer of the Pogues has done for French kissing, I think, probably. Now, what is it actually that makes men most violent? I've thought about this, but think about it a lot. You know, and I think it's football, really. I think they love a good rumble down the old footy, don't they? And women's football isn't violent at all. Why not? Because I don't play it. I don't know if it would be if I did. And also, let's face it, women's football hasn't got off the ground, has it? Because men are so derisive about it. I think they just assume the woman pops the ball in her handbag and gets her husband to drive her up to the goal on the way to the shops or something. Which is bollocks, isn't it? Now, I've actually got a very good idea about how all this violence towards women could be sorted out. You know, I think the government should pass a law for all women to be armed with shotguns. No, I do, because, you know, then we could go out safely at night, we could shoot rapists, we could shoot muggers, and we could shoot anyone that got on our nerves, really, couldn't we? And we'd really like that a lot. But of course they're never going to do that, are they? Because they're going to say, you know, mistakes will be made, accidents will happen. I mean, for example, you might shoot a skinhead in the leg when you're meant to kill the little fucker. So we'd obviously have to learn how to shoot properly. Now, I realise, you know, I'm going on about violence a bit much, and there's obviously a flip side to this, isn't there, which is fear. A lot of very frightened people around. I have to say, honestly, you know, that I get very frightened walking home on my own at night, and a lot of other people get very frightened when I'm walking home on my own at night, and I like that. But, you see, I think the nightmare scenario for a woman, and we've all been through it, is that one when you're walking down a dark, deserted street and you hear footsteps behind you. Because you speed up, they speed up, you slow down, they slow down, you cross the road, they cross the road, you do an impression of Janet Street Porter, they do an impression of Janet Street Porter, and you turn round and it is fucking Janet Street Porter. That's a frightening woman, that is. Dick woman, I hate her fucking guts, I do. Now, I don't know actually if you thought this when I tripped on here like a little fairy. I'm sure you did, because a lot of people do. You looked at me, didn't you, and you went, That woman's a bit of a fashion goddess. I think so, because you see, I fall into that group of women who are euphemistically labelled by the fashion industry as revolting, obese lepers. And we're kind of destined to wander around the streets, tearing our hair out and eating quite a lot of cakes, I might add, until we come across an Evans outside shop. But, I think you'll know, if you've been near one of those recently, that their latest collection is in fact modelled on one of Thora Hurd's Candlewick bedspread. So it's crap really, isn't it? Yes. Let's just test the old political water as well, shall we? And let's talk about John Major, because I want to shag him. I don't know about anyone else. I think he's very gorgeous, that bloke, I really do. But I've thought about old Johnny Major, you know, and to me, he is the feminine hygiene equivalent of a panty liner. Women laughing again, men going, what a panty liner. It's a sad world, isn't it? Yes. See, I worry about panty liners, because really, I'd like to know why women go out and buy them when they could be out buying beer and fags like I do. I can't understand it, really. You can't get pissed on a panty liner. That's my motto. So don't buy them. Besides, you know, what on earth was wrong with those navy blue baggy knickers we used to wear at school? Absolutely nothing was there, because they had a double gusset which would protect you from the blast of an all-out nuclear strike, and you could get your mum shopping in them on the way home. You know, the worst thing about panty liners is the name, panty liners. It's so embarrassing having to go into Boots and ask for them. Why can't they call them something nice? Like fairy hammocks, for example. And you know, I suppose really, I mean, the other thing that I should tell you actually is I'm not married, and to be honest, at 33, I am getting fucking desperate now. I really am. One thing I'd really love to do actually is I'd love to go on blind date just to really fuck the bloke off when the screen was back. It'd be great, wouldn't it? Hi. Weekend on a pig farm with me, matey. What about that then? I don't know if anyone's ever been on a blind date. I've just been on the one, and it was such a strange experience because I phoned a friend of mine. Some bloke was staying there. We got talking, you know, and he said, "You sound nice. Fancy meeting up for a date?" And I thought, why not? So we arranged to meet at Euston Station. And so that I could identify him, he said he'd be carrying a bunch of daffodils and wearing his army uniform. Yum. So I had to think rather quickly there. So I said I'd be outside the men's toilets, dribbling and masturbating. And he turned up. I don't think we all know what the toilets are like at Euston Station. Thankfully, there were just so many of us dribbling and masturbating inside that he got off with some bloke called Reg from Hull. So, it all worked very well in the end, really. Now, see, the thing about marriage is I have to say that if I was going to get married, I certainly wouldn't have a baby. Pregnancy. I mean, any biological process which demands giving up smoking and drinking for any longer than you're actually asleep is crap. Completely pointless. Now, I get the feeling from some of you, you're sitting there thinking, she's really horrible, this woman. When is she going to talk about something nice, like flowers or the Bible? Well, I'm not, sorry. But I've had a little holiday lately, so I want to just talk about that briefly, because I mean, obviously holidays are a little bit difficult for me. You know, I can't really go on beach holidays anymore, because every time I wade out into the sea, Red Adair lands on me and puts me fag out. So I have to go on these cultural holidays, which can be interesting. And I decided recently it was about time I saw Rome. I wanted to get a cheap flight, so I booked on Sudan Airways. Bit dodgy, because I'd never heard of them. But in fact, it wasn't too bad. A couple of drawbacks. No drinking on the plane. Big drawback for me. And obviously, on the way through passport control, I had to have my clitoris surgically removed. But as the women will know, not a lot of use for it in this country anyway, is there? So, feminists clapping and looking scared. Hurrah! That's what we like. Now, I'll tell you actually, when I got to Rome, I realised I'd had the wrong bit off. I should have had my tits off, really, because I hadn't come up across against a middle-aged Roman man before. And if you want to know what he's like, just imagine a cross between Russell Grant and Blakey from On the Buses, if you like. Not quite that attractive, though, I'm afraid. So, big disappointment for me. And again, I'm going to tell you a true story, and Arthur said if it's true, it's not funny and it's boring, but this wasn't boring to me. This actually did happen to me. I was in the Capitoline Museum, soaking up this marvellous history, looking at some busts of Roman emperors, looked across at the only other man in the room, security guard. What was he doing? He was having a wank. Unbelievable, isn't it? What do you do in that situation? I think if you're a woman, you should complain. Strangely enough, not in the phrase book, that one though, and my Italian's not too good. In fact, my Italian only extends to 17 beers, 8 of those massive cakes over there, and no, I'm not Luciano Pavarotti, so a bit buggered on that one. So I gave Italy up as a bit of a bad job, and I went to Ireland actually for a couple of days. Now, I like Ireland. Went to Dublin. I don't know if anyone's been there. One thing I thought was terrible about Dublin is there's loads of children begging on the streets. So obviously I stood out like a bit of a sore thumb, but I got enough money for some Guinness, so I didn't complain. And one thing I would say is that if you've got an English accent, it's not advisable to go into a lot of the pubs in Dublin. I made this mistake, went into a pub, found myself standing next to a very drunken Irish nationalist, and he said to me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from London." But somehow, as the words drifted across to his ears, they metamorphosed into, "I am Oliver Cromwell." Don't know how that happened, got my head kicked in Dublin, so I actually went across to Galway, and Galway's right over the other side on the west coast, and apparently at the moment is the fastest expanding city in Europe. Now, owing to the Guinness, I of course was the second fastest expanding city in Europe by that time. Very nice. Had a few postcards made of me, a lot of people came to visit me, you know, it was marvellous. But what I liked about Galway, loads of pubs in Galway, loads of people in the pubs, loads of Guinness in the people, lots of alcohol in the Guinness, so consequently quite a lot of shagging going on in Galway. But the thing is, they don't actually call it that there, because it's such a horrible word, isn't it? They call it shifting, or having a shift. Sweet, isn't it? And obviously responsible for the very quizzical looks I got when I said I'm just popping outside to shift my car. And actually I've got a Fiat, and that car's a damn good shag, so a little bit wrong on that one. But see, what I think with holidays is I've been away a couple of times, but I think a lot of people, they go abroad to these crap places like America, and nobody stays at home and sort of has a look at what's around them. So what I like to do is I like to stay at home, have a few nice little day trips out in my car to places of local interest, like the cake shop. But main problem I have normally is my frigging car will never start. So I have to do what any normal, sensible young woman of today would do in my position. I have a cup of tea. I have 14 pieces of chocolate Swiss roll, and I call the AA. Now, see, I absolutely adore the AA, because when that bloke eventually gets there, you're so pleased to see him, you want to marry him, don't you? Well, I normally ask, because I think you've got to take every opportunity you can at my age, really. And, you know, obviously, because I'm not married, because I'm a bit of a sad fucker of an old spinster, I have to have a lot of hobbies to stop me from crying all day. I think the spinsters in the audience know what I'm talking about. We have to keep ourselves occupied. And you see, my favourite hobby at the moment, and I think a lot of people do this, I love going through problem pages in newspapers and magazines and trying to sort out those problems in a rather more pragmatic and helpful way than that wanky old trout Claire Rayner does, because she's hopeless. She goes on for pages. So I've been practising. I brought a few problems along with me tonight. See what you think. I think I've sorted them out all right. And I'm actually going to start with one from the News of the World. So we'll all have to step down the old evolutionary ladder a bit to understand it. But see what you think. This one says, "Dear Unity, whenever I put on my daughter's slimline Wellington boots, I get very sexually excited. Is this wrong? I'm 52 and recently widowed." Well, you see, what Unity actually says is, no, it's not wrong, but it'd be better to find yourself a new man, because a man is much more fun than a Wellington boot. Well, Unity, I'm afraid I beg to differ there. Well, I think that's that one sorted out, isn't it? Bloody easy, this job, I tell you. Now, I've also got a couple here from my favourite magazine, which is Weekend magazine. And I like Weekend magazine because everyone that writes into it is completely balmy. They are. Like this one. Dear David, I am a police constable. That's not actually the problem, it doesn't go on after that. Oh dear, police ball. Good. Dear David, I'm a police constable, and following an affair with a woman police constable, I have a very painful swelling in my testicle. Well, all I have to say to that, really, is good. And that's that one sorted as well, isn't it? It is easy, isn't it? Now, this final problem is, in fact, my favourite problem. I love this problem to death, and I almost feel they must have made this up, because, no, they can't have done, because it's just too mad, really. Because this bloke actually wrote in and said, Dear David, I was very upset by the answer you gave to a woman from Grimsby last week, saying she had vaginal thrush. Grimsby is a respectable town, and we most certainly do not have venereal diseases here. Well, I was doing a gig in Grimsby about 3 weeks ago, and I can reassure you now that they do, so no problems. Well, you've been a very charming audience indeed, haven't you? No heckling tonight at all. Bit of a surprise, because, you know, I get heckled a lot. I must have heard fuck off fatty at least 200 times today. And I am currently collecting a list of my favourite heckles, because you get some interesting ones. I think the strangest one I've had to date is Show Us Your Knob. Not quite sure what that was all about. Same club following week, Don't Show Us Your Tits. So I did, just to annoy them. But my favourite heckle ever, I think, because it was so sweet. I went on at a club once and I said, Good evening, you're a nice little crowd. And someone shouted out, Yes, so are you. So what I want to do tonight in the tradition of music hall, because here we are in the land of, what was his name, Leonard Sachs, I've shagged him, so I'm very glad to be back here. He was crap, but so aren't they all, girls, aren't they all? Yes, they are. I want to finish with a little song. Now what I want to do is I want to pay tribute to Frank Sinatra, because Frank Sinatra's a fat bastard. He's in the mafia, isn't he? And that's exactly the sort of bloke I go out looking for when I'm clubbing. So I want to pay tribute to him. Now what I've done is I've taken an old Frank Sinatra standard, and I'm afraid like the words, you know, don't quite match with today's contemporary thrusting woman, so I've had to change them a little bit. See what you think. I get too hungry for dinner at 8. I never bother about watching my weight. I punch small children when my period's late. That's why the lady is a tramp. I don't like men in flash cars who work in advertising. I think they need chastising. Whenever I spy a GTI, I leave my autograph on it with an oxyacetylene blow lamp. That's why the lady is a tramp. I can't stand cabbies, they all talk such drivel. Forever trying to chat you up, it's so hard to be civil. I find it best to say, just sit on that and swivel. That's why the lady is a tramp. I love the smell of stale fags in my hair, soiled underwear. I call my menstrual flow Sebastian Coe, because like him it's irritating and damp. That's why the lady is a tramp. Thanks for listening.